Each year, the executive and council recommend grants to nonprofit organizations that are approved by the council as part of the annual operating budget process. For fiscal year 2019, the council appropriated $12.3 million in community grants. That includes about $8.8 million that were recommended through the executive grants program and $3.5 million through the council grants program. The council is interested in improving the community grants program. The council requested the Office of Legislative Oversight study the issues, and it has released a report, 2018-9, Montgomery County Council Community Grants. This report can be accessed through the council's website. The council decided it would benefit from receiving comments on the community grants program and scheduled this community forum. The Joint Health and Human Services and Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee will meet this Thursday, October 11th at 10 a.m. to hold a work session on the OLO report, the council's grants process for fiscal year 2020, and consider staff recommendations on potential future changes. The council staff report can also be accessed through the council's website. For everybody scheduled to testify today, as it was mentioned earlier, please bring copies of your written testimony to the clerk at this time. And as usual, everybody has 3 minutes, and there will be a light on the base of your microphone in order to activate your microphone, and there will be a yellow light that will signal that your time is about to expire, and so we ask that you respect everybody's time and just wrap up your thought very quickly. So we'll start with Group A. For that, we'll have Eneshaw Miller, Neil Saxena, Andrea Carcamo Savazos, Yi Young Cho, Leslie McDonald, Abe Schuchman. Okay, we'll begin with Eneshaw Miller. Is that person here? No. Neil Saxena? No. Andrea Carcamo Savazos? At the bottom, at the base of the microphone, there is a light. Yes.
Now it's on? Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening. I am a staff attorney at HIAS, one of the member organizations of the Montgomery County Citizenship Initiative Partners and Legal Immigration Service Providers Network. First, we want to thank the Council for its recommendations in the OLO report to follow up on contracts which will help nonprofits to effectively run their program without undue delay. At the same time, it has been historically very difficult for immigration service providers to obtain grants through the County Council grants process. In fact, most of the funding to our coalition partners has been awarded through executive grants. Please take this into consideration as you design a grants process that is fair and accessible to all organizations. Now, having low-cost direct immigration representation is good for the county. The risk of detention and deportation for individuals who have been part of our community for years has greatly increased due to zero tolerance in immigration enforcement and potential loss of temporary protected status, or TPS. In Montgomery County alone, there are approximately 8,222 individuals who would be affected by the termination of TPS. The cost to the county when a member of the community is removed is significant. If every undocumented person left Maryland, the state would lose $15.3 billion in economic activity. Further, the state of Maryland pays $327,000 in foster care costs for children whose parents have been detained or deported. An individual is 4 times more likely to win a case if they are represented, but removal defense can cost up to $10,000. It's our members, the members of our coalition, provide affordable representation. In the case of mine, we provide free representation. Deportation and family separation can also be prevented by providing comprehensive screenings to determine if individuals qualify for immigration relief. In the past year, the coalition provided over 668 legal consultations for Montgomery County residents, which have a value of about $100,000. Montgomery County receives the 10th largest number of unaccompanied minors of all counties in the nation. Our member organizations provide legal immigration representation and other services to help the children thrive in our community. but we often face the dilemma of having to turn them away due to limited capacity. The coalition also assists lawful permanent residents to become United States citizens. The county should further support this effort, as naturalized citizens are twice as likely as non-citizens to be homeowners, have access to higher paying jobs, and more likely to become business owners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, is Enishal Miller here? No? Neil Saxena? Yes. There's a button at the base of the microphone. There you go.
Neil Saxena. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Community Grants Program. My name is Neil Saxena. I grew up in Montgomery County, attending 3 elementary schools, middle school, and high school. I had the privilege to attend top-rated and ranked schools in the country, yet I never learned about my own Asian Pacific American history and never felt like I belonged. At times, made fun of my culture and ashamed of who I was and where I came from, going out of my way to hide parts of me. Outwardly, the internal strain was masked by a value system that focused on stats rather than my story. It wasn't until I got to college where mentors supported me in seeing value in my identity and my history. I share this story with you this evening because it differs from the story of youth at Asian American Lead, who have access to after-school summer and mentoring programs thanks to the Community Grant Program. In addition to the Community Grants report, I ask you to consider the stories of those supported by the community grant-funded organizations and reflect on the impact on those residents who receive nonprofit support, particularly youth. We are appreciative of the support from the county for our unique youth programming. We utilize 20 years of experience supporting low-income and underserved APA youth, evidence-based programming, and diverse staff to support youth through a needed linguistic and cultural lens in their academic development and social and emotional learning. We believe that not only are our youth overlooked, but APA organizations and programs are often overlooked, and the support of the county has been a critical factor in ensuring youth and families we support are not left behind. According to the Philanthropic Initiative for Racial Equity, over the past 10 years, funding for APA organizations increased only 0.2 percentage points, while the APA population grew 72%, the fastest growth rate of any major racial and ethnic group. The limited philanthropic dollars create an environment that constrains the available funding for APA-focused programs and communities. We commend the county for this inward reflection on the grant process and hope the county considers the following recommendations. Maintain both county executive and council grants as separate grants to provide organizations additional opportunities to secure support. It provides avenues for organizations like ALE to receive support for existing programs and seek funding for new programs responding to growing needs that arise from the diversity in the APA community. Implement multi-year contracts and grants for programs that receive funding year after year to be included in the base budget. This provides organizations and staff job stability as they deliver programs and creates viable connections with vulnerable populations and consistency that is missing in many of these residents' lives. Maintain the Grants Advisory Group as an optional in-person opportunity in the grant process. This group provides an opportunity to share information about the application and clarity on the population and program. The Grants Advisory Group should reflect the diversity of those who would be supported by the organizations applying for the Community Grants Program. This may differ from the overall demographics of the county. Additionally, Grants Advisory Groups should receive in-depth cultural awareness trainings to dispel the myths about the APA community. In the past, I've received questions that challenge the fact that there are low-income APA youth in the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for my late arrival. Jiyoung Cho.
Yes. Good afternoon, Council. Sorry.
Yep. If you'll, and Mr. Miller, if you'll turn, no, Mr. Saxena, if you'll turn yours off. There you go.
Okay. Good afternoon, Council President Reimer and then Council members. My name is Jiyoung Cho, Executive Director of Korean Community Service Center. On behalf of the staff, volunteers, and friends of KCSC, I would like to express my great appreciation for your supporting of the Asian American community in Montgomery County. With your support, KCSC ensured that the needs of the most vulnerable members of our community, including the elderly, the infirm, and the victims of domestic violence, are met. According to a 2015 Pew Research Center report, Asians are the fastest growing racial ethnic group in the United States. Over 180,000 Asians make their home in Montgomery County, according to the recent census data. However, the actual number is likely to be even higher due to a significant underreporting of immigrant newcomers. More than 85% of our target population, primarily Korean and Chinese residents, speaks a language other than English at home, and despite the overall wealth of Montgomery County, there still are higher than average numbers of low-income, uninsured, and limited English proficiency individuals within the Asian community. I would like to share with you the story of one of our clients. Ms. Ko, a young mother, came into KCSC with her newborn baby. Our staff learned that she was the victim of ongoing abuse from her ex-boyfriend, who was also the baby's father. First, KCSC helped her to ensure a protective order. KCSC also provided supportive counseling and parenting education, aiming to help her to improve her self-esteem. KCSC was also able to provide emergency financial assistance to cover rent, transportation, groceries, and other essentials. Most importantly, at a time when Ms. Ko was at risk of becoming homeless, KCSC was able to help her to move into safe transitional housing. Now, Ms. Ko is working part-time and she recently went back to school. She finally feels empowered to achieve her goals of finishing school, becoming financially stable, and continuing to be a good mother. Ms. Ko's case is just one of the many stories of the people we serve. County funding enabled KCSC to provide linguistically and culturally sensitive wraparound case management services, helping our clients to quickly stabilize their lives as they overcome many difficulties, challenges. We are proud of what we do at KCSC and the difference we are making for every client we serve. It is an ongoing process, and to continue to make positive difference and ensure a healthier and more sensitive community, we need to continue support of the county and the council members. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leslie McDonald.
Good evening. On behalf of Nonprofit Montgomery, I'd like to thank the council and the county council staff for the thoughtful report and for the opportunity to speak and have dialogue about this very important topic. I'm Leslie McDonald. I'm the executive director of Nonprofit Montgomery, which is an alliance of 150 nonprofit organizations that serve the county. We appreciate the report's intent to improve the accountability, transparency, fairness, and accessibility of the grants process. Given that nonprofits in Montgomery County perform essential services on behalf of county government, it is critical that the government provide the infrastructure that nonprofits need to provide those direct services. That infrastructure includes the financial management, effective governance, evaluation, that are the necessary underpinnings of impactful programs. We support the 3 recommendations outlined in the report. Specifically, on the first recommendation, clarifying the purpose, we agree that clarifying the purposes will be helpful for all of us. It's critical that both the applicants and the grant maker know that the specific eligibility criteria, purpose, and evaluative criteria for the grants. It's important to understand the role that these funds currently play for nonprofits. The report notes that many programs and organizations are funded over multiple years. That indicates that the Council Grants Program is currently supporting essential services that the community values. If grants are intended to be shorter term, there must be a thoughtful process for evaluating the effectiveness of programs that have been funded over multiple years and finding a more stable source of funding for those programs in the base budget. Be aware that changing the grant process without addressing those that have been funded over the long term will destabilize services, could destabilize organizations, and harm countless county residents. We ask you to involve nonprofits in the process of clarifying the purpose, and process is outlined in the recommendation number 1. It's vital that you get our input, and we're ready to help with our expertise and time. Recommendation number 2, with changes in the selection process, we definitely support an open and transparent process. And in particular, we strongly support the guidance on a consistent policy for indirect costs that are allowed, and refer the council to legislation passed by the state of Maryland in the last legislative session that set some clear guidelines on indirect costs that could inform the process here. Recommendation number 3, on procurement, we strongly support efforts to streamline the contracting and procurement processes. As we know, the current system is Okay, I'm going to move ahead. The community values and relies on the support of the Montgomery County Council community grants. They fund essential core services, and they have flexibility to try new approaches and to add on to programs that are currently working to make them more effective. We urge the county to seek the input of nonprofit stakeholders before implementing changes. We stand ready to support your work and to help you as you wade through the process, and I urge you to call on us for our recommendations and advice. I've also
Thank you.
submitted written testimony with more detail. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Abe Shookman.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Council President Reamer and members of the County Council. My name is Abe Shookman. I've been serving as the CEO of Housing Unlimited since 1994. I also currently serve as the treasurer of Nonprofit Montgomery, a commissioner on the county's Interagency Commission on Homelessness, and a member of the Montgomery Housing Alliance. I thank you very much for the opportunity to submit testimony to the council in regard to its community grants program. Housing Limited is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation here in the county, and over the past 24 years, we've purchased 74 scattered site homes and now serve 204 low-income adults in mental health recovery here in Montgomery County. 6 out of 10 new Housing Unlimited tenants come to us from Montgomery County homeless shelters. Yet with over 350 individuals on our waiting list, we know we have much still to do. I want to emphasize that our success is in no small part due to the extraordinary support that we've received from the county government, including the council's community grants program. As a small nonprofit housing organization, your grant assistance has played an important role in enabling us to carefully and prudently expand our affordable housing program. Over the past 5 years, we've been fortunate to receive an average annual council community grant of $38,000. Council grant dollars help us leverage private support from the community. During this same 5-year period, we have raised annually on average $591,000 in operating and capital donations from individuals, corporations, and foundations. In regard to the OLO's recommendations, I support all of the OLO's recommendations. In general, it is indeed critical that all stakeholders understand the specific eligibility criteria, purpose, and key elements that inform the council's ranking of applications. I believe the County Council over these recent years has really strengthened the grants program by clarifying its priorities for the use of the grant funds. Similarly, I believe the grants program has been strengthened by grouping certain applications by subject matter, for example, affordable housing and homelessness, and engaging an expert panel of senior government staff as well as community members to review the applications. Finally, I want to echo Leslie and Nonprofit Montgomery's message that many nonprofits are providing essential services to vulnerable residents. As the council explores possible changes to the grants program, I respectfully request that nonprofits, large and small, be invited to partner with you to explore the implications of any proposed changes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shookman. I look forward to your 25th anniversary party in 2019.
Thank you.
Mr. Leventhal.
If my colleagues will indulge me, I would like to ask all of our witnesses 2 questions. They're not directly the recommendations from the OLO report, but they are on my mind, and if you don't mind, I'd like to ask each of you, and you can just, if you're comfortable, just say yes or no. So the first, I'm going to read both questions. The first question is, would you prefer a single Montgomery County grants process to the bifurcated executive council grants processes? That's the first question. The second question is, would you like to see the county adopt 2-year grant awards for some or all grants? And if we could just go from left to right, starting with Mr. Shookman. I can repeat the questions if you want me to.
Sure. I think I personally...
Your mic's not on yet.
Hello? I think I need more information on, in terms of question number 1. In terms of question number 2, I think a 2-year grant cycle would be outstanding.
I agree about number 2, for sure. Definitely, 2-year grants would help everybody. And as far as number 1, I agree, with provisions. I think that'd be something to look at, but it is definitely a good idea, heading in the right direction.
In terms of question number 1, again, it depends, but one thing to keep in mind is that, as I mentioned, historically, it's very difficult for immigration service providers to obtain grants through the county council grant process. So if there was one single process that is similar to the county council grants, that would be something that I would ask that you consider if you go that route. In terms of the second, I don't really know.
I strongly say yes, both of them. So I would like to be a 2-year grant process, and also the combining of the county executive, county council grant which is a great idea.
Thank you.
For the first question, I support having 2 processes just because it allows for more priority areas to be covered, depending on where the council and the county executive have in terms of their priorities for that year. And for the second one, I think a 2-year grant would be great.
Thank you.
Very good. Good questions. That concludes this panel. We'll call up the next. Thank you. Hillary Yaboa, Cynthia Rubenstein, Shane Rock, Stephen Riley, Heather Bruskin, Bridget Howe. All right, Hillary, you're the first speaker, so you'll begin when you're ready. Oh, but not before you turn on the mic. There you go.
On? Yeah? Awesome. Good evening, council members. My name is Hillary Yaboa, and I'm coming to you as a youth program director of Gapbusters. See, my journey with Gapbusters actually started about 10 years ago, when an organization walked into my neighborhood and had an overwhelming impact. You see, this organization, they promised leadership, they promised civic duty, they promised academic excellence, and they promised impact. And even though I was only 12, maybe 13, I knew I had to get involved. The name of that organization, it was called Gapbusters. It was created 20 years ago to bust the achievement gap between minority and majority students. And he did that by just teaching us what leadership actually was. You see, we learned that a leader not only has to have a vision, but also has to build a team to move forward with that vision, so that vision actually turns into a reality. And leadership was actually one of the reasons why Gapbusters set themselves apart from anyone in my high school or in my middle school too. See, I spent mornings and Saturday afternoons in SAT prep, getting tutored in math, going college tours. But at the other moment, I was working campaigns. I made sure to actually plan a winter clothing drive. I made sure to do the door knocking. I made sure to do the canvassing. I was also trained as an HIV and peer educator. And for the Black community, that means something. When a young girl is able to tell an adult and a youth that you have to be safe. So I spent every semester in my high school year actually earning over 100 SSL hours. And that was all through Gapbuster. I wasn't even 16 yet. But my journey through Gapbuster didn't just stop there. You see, I'm a first-generation American. But Gapbuster inspired me to apply to an Ivy League institution. I did not think I was getting in whatsoever. But I got a full ride to Cornell University. Because Gapbuster taught me that regardless of your race, your sex, your socioeconomic status, your child belonged in college. And after Cornell, I actually relocated to California, all by myself. I was in love with tech, and it was so much fun. Until I took that second to realize that there weren't a lot of faces that actually looked like me. So when I heard that Gapbuster took the initiative to actually close the STEM achievement gap between minority and majority students, I know it was time for me to come back home. You see, I know a lot about tech, and I know a lot about students. And the one thing I also do know is that I need your help to be successful. Thank you for supporting us in the past, but I'm also asking that you support us in the future as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Yeboah. Cynthia Rubenstein.
Good evening, President Reamer and members of the County Council. I'm Cynthia Rubenstein, and I'm the Executive Director of Passion for Learning, a youth development organization based in Silver Spring. For nearly 15 years, we have served low-income middle school youth with technology enrichment and, more recently, early college preparation programs. Passion for Learning has been a County Council community grant recipient, and I am the designated point person for that annual grant process. My organization deeply appreciates the support that we have received on behalf of under-resourced and striving MCPS students. I am here to express support for the 3 recommendations of the OLO report with just a few specific comments, caveats, suggestions. Recommendation 1, clarify the purpose and goals. I would like to address the question of whether community grants should be one-time only, with an example of the impact of multi-year support from my own organization. Thanks to past and repeated community grant support, there are alumni of our programs who are on a path to college or in college today pursuing degrees and their chosen professions. In other words, community grant support over time has helped us move the dial for under-resourced students who have the drive and dreams for higher education. These longitudinal results did not happen through one-time, one-year grant. Recommendation 2, improve accountability and fairness in the grant process. I want to highlight my support for the involvement of county departments in the community grant process so that county priorities, goals, objectives are aligned with the process and recommended grants clearly represent a value-added proposition. Recommendation 3, future OLO report addressing contract execution, payment, and reporting. I urge the County Council, with all due speed, to recommend and pursue a future OLO report. The current contracting procedure and system includes multiple inefficiencies and unnecessary burdens on departments as well as nonprofit grantees. These issues hamper our work, effectiveness, and impact. Lastly, please regard nonprofits as your partners and resources in the process of making changes. I hope you will engage us in this worthy task. Thank you.
Thank you. Shane Rock.
Good evening, Council President Reamer and council members. My name is Shane Rock, CEO of Interfaith Works. I was a recipient of financial support through both County Executive and County Council Community Grants Awards for a variety of programs over the years. Interfaith Works is quite familiar with the value and challenges of the Community Grants Program. We appreciate the work of the Office of Legislative Oversight in detailing findings. The OLL findings align with our experience. The recommendations based on the findings strike us as important steps to address the shortcomings in the Community Grants Program. The recommendations, however, leave open important questions regarding the purpose of the grants program and the process for awarding grants. We humbly offer 2 guiding principles for answering those questions. First, community grants should not fund ongoing critical community needs such as housing the homeless, providing basic needs assistance for the poor and vulnerable, or serving the medical or behavioral health needs of the uninsured. Critical needs such as these should be funded through the base budget, not the yearly competition for limited community grant funding. Nonprofits who have received community grant funding for critical service for a number of years have to budget as if that funding will continue. Yet there is risk every year that the community grant funding will not be renewed, as was the case this year for Interfaith Works Clothing Center. As outlined in OLO recommendation number 1, the County Council should establish a policy of moving grants funded for a set number of years into the county's base budget. Second, In the interest of fairness and transparency, politics must be removed from the community grants awards process. Applications should be evaluated using established and clear criteria aligned with county department priorities. In addition, the county executive and county council should work with the county grants administrator to either combine the community grants program into a single funding pool, or, if the funds remain separate, to at least establish one combined application for county executive and county council community grants. With more than 10,500 nonprofit organizations and counting in this county, fairness and transparency in the process of awarding limited dollars for the best and most important proposals is essential. The Community Grants Program provides vital financial resources for needed community services and projects and helps spur innovative ideas. We strongly encourage the Council to discuss, debate, and act upon the recommendations in the OLO report to make this important program more effective, transparent, and fair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. Mr. Riley.
Good evening, Council President, members of the Council. My name is Steve Riley. I'm here on behalf of Potomac Community Resources, a nonprofit in Montgomery County that provides and promotes the full inclusion of persons with intellectual and developmental differences into all aspects of our community life. For information about who we are, what we do, how we do it, and our impact, I would refer you to our statement. To provide some context for my specific recommendations, PCR has, since 1994, been and continues to regard ourselves as a public-private partnership with Montgomery County. The Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services in 1994 was one of the 3 founding funders of what became PCR. And the quarter century of partnership that has taken place since has been productive and benefited the lives of Montgomery County residents with developmental differences and their families. And we really appreciate your support and the opportunity to be here tonight. The County Council Community Grants play a significant role in the civic life of our county and should continue as a separate independent program. They finance cost-efficient delivery of a range of safety net programs and services. They promote innovation. They incubate creative grassroots nonprofit startups. And importantly, they foster a culture of civic engagement in our county. As you may recall, I have been engaged with the County Council and members of your office staffs and members of the Council grant staff over a number of years as we apply for grants each year. I'm grateful to you and to members of your staff for the interest that you've exhibited in PCR, your accessibility, your willingness to work with us, to listen to our advocacy, and for the open-minded and respectful manner in which you perform your council grants work. Regarding the report, it provides welcome clarity about who in this process recommends applicants for funding, and the who is the grants advisory group, as noted in the report, and also clarity about who makes the decision about the specific funding levels to be recommended to the council for each individual grant applied for. And that, of course, is the grants manager, as noted in the report. Further clarification is, however, needed, in my opinion, regarding the exact criteria used by the grants manager when deciding the funding levels of each applicant. Finally, I respectfully urge the council to reinstate, as a matter of instruction to staff, the prior practice of having staff report 2 weeks before the straw vote the list of recommended grants along with specific levels of funding for each recommended grant. This will improve transparency and provide applicants the opportunity to engage in advocacy with the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Heather Bruskin.
Good evening. My name is Heather Bruskin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Food Council. Thank you, Council President Reamer and the Council for convening this forum tonight. On behalf of the Food Council, I have the good fortune of sharing our unique perspective as both a county grant awardee and reviewer, and express our agreement with many of the recommendations set forth in the OLO report. For the past 2 years, we've served as the subject matter experts leading the evaluation of food sector grant requests. Our 11 volunteer panelists contributed 150 hours for FY19 to review 26 grants because we view it as crucial that those with subject matter expertise weigh in on the merits of each proposal. Multiple findings in the OLO report mirror feedback that the Food Council received from our volunteer panelists. They found it difficult to evaluate funding requests for critical services to county residents side by side with those that propose innovative but untested approaches, even if both address the same county issue. Our grant teams also noted that smaller and/or newer organizations are generally less equipped than higher capacity organizations to write applications with clear outputs and outcomes or to correctly complete the financial documentation. As such, we strongly support the recommendation that the Council both clearly define the purpose of the program, aligning the goals with existing county strategic priorities such as the food security plan whenever possible, and consider creating separate funding streams for new and established programs. If the county decides that the purpose of these grants is not long-term funding of established programs that have become foundational community resources, it's essential that other mechanisms are put in place to ensure both continuation of these critical services and stability for the organizations that provide them. We agree that the evaluation criteria should be better defined and that organizations should be provided with more detailed information on why they were not selected for funding, enabling them to strengthen future applications. Separately, from an applicant's perspective, we support the recommendations that the County Council consider awarding multiple-year grants or moving funds to the base budget for organizations that have received grant funding year after year. Implementing these strategies would streamline processes for grantees and contract managers and allow funded organizations to plan their expansion of services for more than 1 year at a time. We also note that it's challenging in the current evaluation process for convener organizations such as the Food Council to effectively communicate the amplifying value that we bring to county investments by facilitating collaboration among hundreds of county stakeholders, and recommend the county consider how it evaluates organizations that don't fit the traditional direct service provider mold. We echo the report's recognition of the county grant staff's leadership in providing thoughtful and responsible stewardship of county funds, and we commend the county government's commitment to further strengthening its grant program.
Thank you, Heather. Bridget Howe.
Good evening, Council President Reamer and council members. I'm Bridget Howe, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my personal reflections on community grants. First, I'm very grateful for this OLO report and forum, and I do hope that the new council and new executive take these recommendations to heart and pledge to move forward with implementation. As you've heard tonight, community grants are a lifeline for nonprofits in Montgomery County, and at the same time, it's ridiculous that $12 million or so is a lifeline for an entire sector. The grants process as it currently stands is a Band-Aid for larger systemic issues around funding and service delivery. So improving the grants process can be, and with enough political will should be, just the beginning of peeling the layers of the onion off to encourage evidence-informed practice, common outcomes, better data collection, and to improve the sustainability of the nonprofit sector here. While the total dollar amount of community grants is small compared to the overall county budget, as we've heard, for many organizations, these grants make a huge difference to their bottom line. That said, the rate of growth for community grants over the past few years has been dramatic in response to service needs, sector advocacy, and many other reasons. But that has happened without enough intentionality. That results in a politicized grants program that relies on discretionary funding to fund essential services, that funds organizations that don't use evidence-informed practice, that is uneven in its transparency and reach, and that sustains some organizations that really are not otherwise sustainable. It's also a program that's onerous from application to contract execution, taking significant organizational time for applications that may only result in a few $1,000s of funding. The OLO report and committee packet for Thursday make very good findings and recommendations, and I'm going to highlight what I think is most important. The report suggests creating a single county grants office for community grants. I think this is an excellent idea that would result in added transparency, efficiency, and trustworthiness of the process. And if it's done right, it could depoliticize the process, even just a little bit. This recommendation also suggests creating pots of funding for designated purposes. I strongly urge that those be intentionally aligned with the county's strategic priorities, goals, and outcomes, and that funding decisions are also aligned. This should all be done with public input, of course. I also recommend the development of an innovation fund to allow for risk-taking, because while I believe in evidence-informed programs, I also think we should set aside funding to encourage innovation and pilot new approaches. This would all be most effective if we ensure that programs that are funded year after year, that deliver core services and deliver strong outcomes, are moved into the base budget and funded at appropriate levels that truly cover the real expenses of delivering services. As a county resident, I feel lucky to live in a community that places so much value on its partnerships with community-based organizations to strengthen the community. As a taxpayer, I want to ensure that county funding prioritizes proven interventions, that it's allocated in a transparent and fair way, and that it ultimately achieves the positive outcomes that we should all expect. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Leventhal, is your light on already? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, again, I'd like to ask these two questions. Some of you already addressed some of them, but the first question is, would you prefer, and again, we'll go from left to right, and you can just answer yes or no. Would you prefer a single Montgomery County grants process to the bifurcated executive council grants processes? That's question one. Question two is, would you like to see the county adopt two-year grant awards for some or all grants?
Thank you, Mr. Leventhal. To the answer, the first question is no. The second question, yes.
Thank you.
Yes and yes?
Thank you.
I would say yes, unless they had different purposes or goals that were specified, and yes for the second question.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
No and yes.
Thank you very much.
Wait, yeah, please stay. There's more questions. Council Vice President Navarro.
Thank you. Actually, I really do want to commend everybody for coming out. I think this is a very good moment for us to take this on, given that we are in the cusp of transition in leadership. And a lot, I think, of what's contained in the OLO report really just, I think, solidified and validated a lot of the feedback that we had received for quite a while. As chair of the GO committee, you know, it's always a struggle every year to have to set the amounts for the council grants and then the executive grants. And inevitably every year, those amounts are not necessarily what ends up being awarded. And so this question of whether we should have, you know, one particular, you know, county government grants program, it's a very interesting one from my perspective, because I think that it probably would allow for a more sort of seamless, more transparent, and depoliticized process, right? And, you know, I led a nonprofit organization for 8 years, and at that time it was really confusing. And to this moment, I still get a lot of organizations coming and trying to ask, and you know, how do I do this? And there's just a lot of strange maneuvering, right? You know, apply to both. If you don't get this much, then maybe you get the other. And you know, as a nonprofit leader, it is a real problem to have to operate that way. So I think that this is a great time for us to really go into, you know, moving forward with something that is, I think, more aligned with our policies and our goals. We shall see how it all works out. I mean, I think, you know, migrating to the base budget is an interesting concept as well, but that would be something that we have to work, you know, very, very thoroughly. And as more of you come forward to testify, you know, do share with us sort of your reaction to the report specifically and your thoughts, because we're all jotting down. And of course, this Thursday we'll have that session. So thank you.
Mr. Rice.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rubenstein, how long have you guys been receiving council grants?
7 or 8 years. 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And doing the same great work in the community, I'm very familiar with what you do. You've been doing it a long time, and it's been a part of the grants process that you keep coming back and asking us for money to do the same job that we know that you're doing and being successful in the community. Thank you. Mr. Rock, how long has Interfaith Works been getting council grants from the county council?
As long as there's been a council grants program, probably. I don't know for sure.
Interesting.
I know specific grants.
Right. And I understand that some of the grants are different that you do for some of the innovation, but some are for core services, and I know that when some of the others come up, they're going to give us the same answers. It just boggles my mind. Since 2014, when I was council president, Madam Vice President, and had asked the county executive about trying to incorporate at that point core services into our base budget. It just makes sense. I don't know why it is that we continue to put you guys through the ringer every single year over and over again. It just doesn't, and so we have one of our potential folks who's going to be the next county executive who's here tonight, and so that's great because he gets to hear firsthand from what the expectations
Where's
are.
Ficker?
We're not even going to grant you one on that one.
Well done, Mr. President, well done. Let me just say that I really find it troubling that we've continued to do this. Bridget, something that you said I think is incredibly important. You know, we like innovation and we like folks being able to do some things that are outside of the box and to take risks and see if something like this is going to work. I do agree that we do need to set aside some money aside for those particular kinds of issues. I really, quite honestly, always thought, and I'm just curious as to if anybody on the panel has a reaction, I always envisioned that's what our grants process would be. The core services that you provide should be through a partnership between county and nonprofits. And it shouldn't be this competitive grants process. If we believe in those core functions, then we should be funding that. But aside from that, would have this innovative fund that's there to help a new entity that's just starting up. Or if you're going to do something new, you know, and explore, you know, going into a different realm in which Interfaith Works hadn't been there before and it was untested, that would be something that you would apply for a grant for. But not for putting clothing on people's backs and feeding them. Those aren't grants. Those are the innate functions that we have within government. Please, Mr. Rock.
One brief remark on that. I think that's absolutely right. The issue is the transition, right? And so how do you deal with this funding that's been provided for basic services that really should be part of existing contracts? And at the same time, create this fund without undercutting that existing funding. So that's the challenge, and I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Mr. Elrich.
So I liked everything you all had to say. And I liked the discussion of intentionality, because I think that's really important, and I think that's something that's lacking in how we've gone about doing things. So I really appreciate all of that. I was wondering, how many of you get your grants in July routinely? Yeah. How about August? September? September sounds good. So you can't do any work July and August until you get a grant, correct? You cannot be reimbursed for the work you've done. Or you don't do the work that you planned on doing because you didn't have a grant to pay people to do it. And you've been doing this for year after year. But you can't get grants on July 1 when the budget cycle starts. Yeah. And you're pretty sure at some point that you know you're going to get a grant. Well, you don't actually, you can't say that, but you should be, some of you should be, yeah, some of you are very certain. So, I mean, I think that's another problem with this. I shouldn't be budgeting for a year's spending. You shouldn't be budgeting for a year's spending and then not getting a year's spending and then having this dead zone in between where you don't know quite what to do and well, we know what we're doing apparently, but you're kind of left in limbo. So I'm glad you confirmed what pretty much everybody else has told me about the payment cycle. Yeah.
Just to put words to it, we can't do anything and be reimbursed for it until we receive a notice to proceed. And on a community grant, those are not retroactive to July 1st. They take effect upon receipt. So therefore, many of us have to undertake the services because people depend upon us, but we don't get paid for those.
I'll say the other thing that's always struck me, Shane, you told me about a couple, it was Susie Sinclair Smith, who had a project, I think it was somebody who did training for homeless people to get employment. And that position they had funded for 3 years, and then you didn't get funding, and the reason was, well, you've had funding for 3 years, as if you could just go off the funding cycle and find the money someplace else, and it was of no consequence if you didn't find that money. Yeah, so I would really like to see some of this stuff changed.
Mr. Katz.
Thank you very much. And, you know, usually I'm someone that believes a public hearing should be to hear from the public, but I do think that it's very necessary in this one. This is not a public hearing. This is a community discussion. So I think it's necessary we all have these chats. But I'm interested, is everybody all have the same fiscal year? Do you all start July 1st? Do some people start January? How does that, you're shaking your head, no.
We're the calendar year.
Your calendar year. And see, that's something else that we have to keep in mind, is if we want you to do our good work, which we want you to do, by the way, and you can stretch tax dollars further because of all the good work you do, you know the clients, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, go through everything that's been discussed and should be discussed, then we have to figure out a better way, and the OLO report is a good way to start on this, but we have to figure out a better way to keep everybody whole. And we have to have a better way to figure out, and to the points that have been made, yes, these should be more, in some cases, innovative, but in another way, you all are the lifeblood of Montgomery County in so many ways. So we have to figure this thing out. I think if we continue this good dialogue, and maybe not necessarily just this evening, but if we continue this good dialogue, we can actually get this thing solved. There's no one who doesn't want to solve it. It's just the difficulty is how to solve it. Thank you all for doing what you do.
Mr. President, Steve Riley, may I just make one comment about predictability?
Sure.
Thanks. So in the current fiscal year cycle, PCR applied for a county council grant for one specific program. And we applied at a certain level and received a grant at a significantly lower level. Now, we apply for grants that we know we need, not what we'd like to have. So that 56% reduction in the county council grant support for this particular program, which is our most expensive, complicated program for people with profound disabilities and complex medical needs, took a real hit. Now, we're scrambling to make up for that, but in point of fact, it does have an impact on what small organizations are able to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to the panel. We'll call the next. Sam Mukherjee, Jacob Newman, Hillary Sumba, Sarah Horwitz, Debbie Ezrin, and To Tran. Okay. I'm not seeing Sam Mukherjee, nor Jacob Newman. So Hillary, you're up first.
Thank you and good evening. I'd like you all to imagine a family made up of different members, children, parents, grandparents, and then think about the needs of all of the individuals in that family, from positive youth development programming for kids to perhaps adult day services for the older adults. If the family is of limited means, they may need some safety net services, food security, workforce development, housing assistance. The package of services that any family is going to need is going to depend on their unique circumstances. But the point is that it's a package that no one organization can deliver on its own. The Primary Care Coalition envisions a vibrant community that supports all people in leading their healthiest lives. And we recognize that for that vision to become a reality, we need a community of strong nonprofit partners that are resourced and able to deliver a wide range of services. And the Council Community Grants Program is an important funding mechanism for creating such a strong sector. So I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak to you about the OLO report that recently came out, the recommendations of which we broadly support, and to ask that in preparing for the upcoming work sessions, you take the following into consideration. First, as has already been said, please ensure nonprofits are at the table with you as you're clarifying and defining the purpose and goals of the program. Doing this will help to balance some of the many tensions we've already heard about this evening, including the need to think about funding for innovation on the one hand and maintaining service delivery on the other hand. Second, emphasize common process and performance measures throughout the grants programs. Over the course of the last 18 months, together with nonprofit Montgomery, PCC has co-convened a series of community roundtable discussions with nonprofit organizations, and a central theme has been the desire for comparable outcomes measures against which nonprofits can evaluate performance against established subsector goals. Third, invest in evidence-informed practices for grants that are for ongoing programming. Certainly on the innovation side, there's a need for flexibility and the ability to take risks and try new things. But to continually invest in things that have not been proven effective is not the best use of resources. So when it comes to the time of renewals, there should be clear criteria for how that's going to be evaluated and how those funds are going to be reallocated. And finally, foster collaboration by investing in infrastructure. In the age where general operating grants are dwindling and capacity building resources are low, it's really important to invest so that we can spend the time on the front end in designing collaborative programming. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you in true partnership as this process goes forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Hillary. Sarah.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Horowitz, and I'm the Director of Development at the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Montgomery County, also known as NAMI-MC. A community resource since 1978, NAMI-MC provides free mental health programs for those impacted by mental illness. All of us at NAMI-MC are grateful to receive the funding from the Montgomery County Executive and Council Community Grants Program for both our consumer and youth programming. Our grant for consumers enables NAMI-MC to provide free educational classes, support groups, and outreach to individuals living with mental illness and their caregivers, while the funds for youth programming enable us to provide mental health education to local adolescents, as well as implement the evidence-based suicide prevention program, Sources of Strength, in local schools. While we are grateful for the county community grants, the staff and I at NAMI-MC strongly believe that changes should be made to the process of how nonprofits submit the grants and how the county executes and monitors the grants. I am here to support the recommendations from the Office of Legislative Oversight's report, including the suggestion to establish one combined application from the county for the county executive and county council community grants program. Each year, we submit 2 program applications to both the county executive community grants and to the county council community grants program for a total of 4 applications. These applications are rather identical, and this process takes a lot of time away from our small staff. Additionally, the county only allocates the 1-year grants, meaning that we must apply each year for the funding, even if it's for the same program that we applied for the previous year. Additionally, I would like to address the OLO's recommendation for a follow-up report that would examine the contract execution, payment policies, and monitoring of county council grants. NAMI-MC has had particular challenges with the contract monitoring of the community grants and have had to go back and forth with the different contract monitors that we have for the several grants that we have received. So I just want to say that we are really appreciative for this support that we have gotten, and I also appreciate your time this evening, and thank you for allowing me to share NAMI-MC's experience with the county grants process.
Thank you very much. Nice job. Debbie.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Ezrin, and I'm the Director of Development and Communications for Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless. MCCH appreciates the Council's longstanding support of the Community Grants Program and your interest in strengthening it through the excellent work of the Office of Legislative Oversight. The Community Grants Program has enabled MCCH to expand our efforts to end homelessness through more than 30 grants just since 2008, valued at over $2.2 million. These grants have seeded new initiatives and sustained core program operations. Informed by our extensive experience, our testimony focuses on 3 key recommendations by the OLO. First, we believe the Community Grants Program would be best served by defining the program's goal. Clearer goals that go beyond alignment with the 8 broad goals set forth by the county executive would increase government efficiency by soliciting proposals with clearer alignment towards more deeply defined county goals. Though this may not reduce the number of submissions, it should increase the time that the county spends on more worthy proposals. At the same time, nonprofits would have the opportunity to focus their limited time on developing more relevant proposals. Clearer goals can also facilitate resolution of 2 OLO's proposed changes. The first is to consider consolidating the executive and council grants into a single program. The second is to consider creating a path to base budget funding. MCCH is directly affected by this issue since we've had a single community grant averaging at least $115,000 since 2008 to fund core operations at our men's shelter. While we endorse having a robust debate about this complex issue, we urge the council to take a significant first step by moving grants like ours into the FY20 base budget based on having a long funding history for core operations of essential government services with strong outcomes. Second, we strongly advocate for strengthening the selection process by creating greater transparency about funding decisions with clearer rubrics and scoring reports. We endorse strengthening advisory panels through increased diversity, including balancing subject matter experts with other residents, as well as having relevant department staff engage advisory panels prior to reviewing those grants. Finally, we support OLO's recommendation to commission a report on contracting and procurement based on our adverse experiences with the current process. In FY19, we were awarded $35,000 to purchase a van for our men's shelter and have yet to receive a contract. In FY18, we were awarded a grant for case management services for a program with an existing contract. In fact, the grant was immediately moved into the base budget, but the county chose to require a new contract for the additional funds rather than adding them to the existing county contract. MCCH fully endorses nonprofit Montgomery's testimony as well. On behalf of the clients and community we serve, thank you for all that you've done to support our work and to strengthen the role of nonprofits.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Your note, your comment there is cautionary tale. You move funding to the base budget, but you don't necessarily solve the problem. So we've got to really figure everything out holistically.
Yeah.
Totran. Good evening, County Council members. My name is Totran, Executive Director of Vietnamese American Services. On behalf of our Vietnamese community, thank you for your support to our program in the last 3 years. So your support is help us to have a tailor-made intervention and have a solution for the target group. And we have about 1,500 Vietnamese community, including senior children and their family. We can have a lot of them enroll and have them access to healthcare, create serious English class, and link them with the opportunity for jobs, and have a weekly support senior groups, and do home visits to the most vulnerable people in the community. Based on the report that I am also participate to the focus group discussion, I think the report is capture all of the ideas and recommendations. So compared to the last 3 years, I think the process is really improved, and I think even the system is very friendly use. And I think we can keep that, and also we can make it better. But so far, I think we did very good job and improve the system. I would like to ask the County Council to help to move the grant to the base budget, because with the limited staffing, we are small non-profits. We want to focus to deliver the outcome and output to the community, so we can save time to do a lot of time to write and do the administration work. And then we would like to ask that if we also have a grant for new initiative. That means every year, if we think that something needs to change, we can apply for the new grant. And I would like to ask that we should have a support from the partnership, like Office of Partnership. I feel that very helpful from support of group in Asian Advisory Group is Diane Vivu or Perry Chan from Asian American Health Initiative. So that's one of my recommendations, and thank you for your helping, and we really appreciate you doing the support to the least privileged in the community.
Thank you, very nice. Mr. Leventhal.
Yeah, I'm asking each panel the same two questions. I'll repeat the questions. Please answer just yes or no if you can. The first question is, would you prefer a single Montgomery County grants process to the bifurcated executive council grants processes? The second question is, would you like to see the county adopt 2-year grant awards for some or all grants?
The first question is no, and the second is yes.
Thank you.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Thank you.
Yes to the first question, and please engage us in talking about the design of what that would look like. And yes to the second question.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much to our speakers. We will move to our next and final panel. Nancy Leopold, Susan Emery, Robert Ponix-Terra, Keisha Houghton, Marcus Larson, Patricia Westling, Nancy Shasinski. All right, so we'll proceed in that order. And Ms. Leopold, you're up first. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, President Reimer and council members. I'm Nancy Leopold, Executive Director of College Tracks. I'd like to thank the council and council staff for their thoughtful report and for the support that College Tracks has received through the council grants and executive program for many years. College Tracks closes the opportunity gap. We help the county's low-income first-generation to college young people get to and through higher education. As a result, young people stay on pathways that lead to rewarding careers and lives. Families move out of poverty, and the county's employers have qualified employees to hire. This school year, College Tracks will serve more than 1,000 high school students from 4 high schools, as well as 550 college students. I'm here tonight to support the report recommendation number 1 to clarify and define the purposes and goals of the program, especially the establishment of a policy on whether organizations who receive funding year after year should be included in the county's base budget. As you decide whether to impose caps on the amount or years an organization can receive grant funds, I encourage you to put a mechanism in place to continue county support for nonprofits such as College Tracks that provide essential county services. And I'm here tonight to describe the impact that year after year county grant funding has had on the county high school and college students College Tracks serves. We received funding county grant funding of some sort since 2008, 2 years after we were established as a nonprofit. At that time, we were serving 400 students in 2 county schools with a budget of $137,000. Since then, College Tracks has scaled up to serve 4 times that many students annually with a budget of $2.2 million. College Tracks students in 4 schools now get help to apply to college and find financial aid, as well as support while in college to increase the likelihood that they'll graduate. County grant funding has been essential to our growth and sustainability. The grants support staff salaries and, as importantly, demonstrate to other funders that College Tracks is worthy of their investment. In fact, College Tracks leverages every county grant dollar. For every $1 of county grant funding, College Tracks has raised $4 from non-county sources, private foundations, individuals, and corporations. I urge you to identify the appropriate mechanism for continued long-term county investment in these public-private partnerships that have proven lasting impact on the communities they serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leopold. Susan Emery. No? Robert.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity, President Reimer, council members, to speak to you this evening about the OL report. The one thing that struck me as I was reading the report was the fact that the OLO searched high and low to find some best practices regarding funding for nonprofits in the relationship between government and those funding mechanisms, and couldn't find any. And might I suggest that you indeed have the opportunity to be that best practice, so that other counties can look to you to see what exactly they need to do in order to put together a program and an agenda and a system by which the organizations that are doing the best work in the county remain funded, and whereas new organizations and organizations that have innovative ideas also have the opportunity to receive funding and show those ideas to be valuable and needed. I noticed that 134 or 135 organizations have been funded for the past 5 years. Liberty's Promise is one of them. We received county funding since 2006, either from the council or for the executive or from both parties. We are very, very grateful for that, because it does indeed help us fund our core services here in the county, which is to help young immigrants from more than 100 countries succeed and feel like they can graduate high school and feel like they can go on to college and have a career. Since we began here, we've served more than 2,000 county youth. 99% of them have graduated high school. That's low-income immigrants. So the MCPS graduation rate for Hispanic youth is 80%. Ours is 99%. 60% of our youth are in college, so both of these statistics are far and above, statistically significantly higher than the national average for low-income youth. We have youth right now who are living in the county, they're paying taxes in the county, and they're working in the county, and they're good citizens, and that's the nature of what we do. And so we indeed would recommend that organizations that are doing well, they should go into the base budget or go into some mechanism by which they receive funding over the long term, and also that there be one application at least, so that organizations don't have to fill out 2 applications for the same funding pool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Keisha Houghton?
Good evening, Council President and fellow council members. My name is Kaisha Horton. I am the Managing Director of the Maryland Women's Business Center. We started as an initiative of Rockville Economic Development, or READY, which was initially established to help Montgomery County's diverse population of women start and grow enterprises positioned for long-term growth in the community. Through training, individual counseling, facilitated peer group support, specialized resources, and access to capital, we now have helped over 7,000 women since we started in 2010. Access to capital and achieving scalability is still a challenge for many women entrepreneurs. Research from a 2013 Aspen Institute study shows that African Americans and Latinos frequently encounter barriers that limit business ownership and growth, including lower levels of financing, education, business experience, and lack of market access. These studies indicate that not only being a woman, but being a minority woman has a host of challenges that further impede business success. Last year, in Montgomery County, we were able to help over 1,100 women entrepreneurs in starting 31 businesses, 134 jobs, increasing sales to $2.3 million, and getting access to over $866,000 in capital infusion. And our goal is to increase that for this coming fiscal year. But we can't do it without the community grant and support from Montgomery County. The support that we've received from Montgomery County in the past has been able to sustain the work that we're doing here for women entrepreneurs. And one of the things that I would like to put out there as a recommendation after reviewing the OLO report is that we would request considering extending the years of funding beyond 1 year, or inclusion into the county's budget in light of the important economic impact role we are playing in Montgomery County. We also would like to request a single grant system to be considered to streamline the process to make it simpler for us to make sure that we get the support for our program. Again, we could not do what we do without the support from Montgomery County, from the support of the community grant. It would be great if it was one grant system that we applied for instead of two. So any way we can help in the process to streamline what you were doing and evaluating the effectiveness, we would be more than willing to participate in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus Larson? No. Patricia Westling?
Good evening. I'm Patricia Westland with Only Help Grant Proposal Chairman. I have 5 points that I would like to make. The first two are recommendations. I was going to suggest that should the new county mini grant food program be released again, that it be a little easier to use as it was online. However, there was no ability to be interactive, and there was no ability to save as you go, so it was quite cumbersome and time-consuming. However, I was very happy with the Diana Tato-Niktosh, I believe, who worked with me and helped me through it. The second point that I would like to make, and the rest are regarding the county executive and county council programs. The reporting process objective, for the objective portion regarding the outcomes and the output seems to be quite simple, and now that it's online, I find it easy to do. However, what we do find cumbersome and confusing, the treasurer, when I say we, for both the county executive and council grants, are the dissemination of the purchase orders, the invoicing, and reporting process. Sometimes there are long gaps between the release of, and I've heard similar comments from colleagues here, between the expected date for the release of the purchase order. The other 3 points that I would like to make are positive. Only Help has consistently enjoyed generous awards from the county executive since 2011 and the county council since 2015. The December meetings that the county holds for both kicking off the county executive and council grants for nonprofits is valuable, especially in view of the 2017 staff changes. The last point that I would like to make regarding the county staff is they are readily accessible, consistently, flexible, and aim to satisfy all questions and needs through meetings, phone calls, emails, etc. In summarizing, I'd like to say that Only Help, for those that don't know, is celebrating its 50 years in service for our needy in 5 zip codes. We serve between 500 households a year for food. That's once a month deliveries. We are unique in that regard. Most food banks require that you come and pick up the food. Our drivers, all volunteers, all 60 of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
I think we have a new addition or a previously scheduled addition. Marcus Larson, we'll go to you now, and you have 3 minutes. When you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light will come on. And turn on the microphone at the base. So.
Yes, hi. I'm Marcus Larson, and I am grateful to be here today. I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Life Asset, and we provide microloans and training to low-income entrepreneurs, and in particular entrepreneurs who have difficulties qualifying for a loan anywhere else, including banks, credit unions, and other nonprofit lenders. And I have provided a 2-page written testimony. I will take the risk of not following that today to save time, but I want to make 2 points. First one, we are deeply grateful for all the council members and the commitment that you have shown for not just small businesses in the county, but businesses that are low income or very low income and have difficulties accessing capital needed to start or expand a business. And I also want to thank the staff and leadership of this community grant for their excellent work. It has always been a pleasure and ease to work with. The second point I want to share is the quite amazing impact that these microloans have. So we provide microloans combined, coupled with training. And in the past 12 months, we have issued 140 loans, so to 240 entrepreneurs to help them start or expand a small business, and ongoing training. And this is our first year that we have received a grant, and that even though relatively small, it gave us and the board that confirmation and encouragement to set up an office here in Silver Spring. We are based originally in DC, and we intend to double that amount every year. So fiscal year 19, our goal is 240 entrepreneurs, and each business provide higher repayment rate than what you see at banks. And each business on average employ 2.5 people if you count seasonal and temporary jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. And our final speaker, Nancy Soshinsky.
Good evening, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here. One of the things about going last is there's very little that hasn't already been said. So I will focus on, rather than what I had planned, I would gloss over some of the things. About the only thing we haven't talked about is what we do with the money that you give us. First, as someone who lives and works in Montgomery County, I'm very proud to be part of a place that really cares about extending the safety net to our friends and neighbors and citizens who are the most vulnerable. That's very rewarding to me. As a director of a homeless shelter, I thank you very much for consistently supporting our group. What we do with the money is use it to fund case management and training. And as you know, both of those things are key components of moving people out of homelessness. So it's a very important role that you are supporting, and we do appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that you funded this report, the OLO report. I had the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Latham, and it was really a pleasure. And I was very impressed with her insight and her questions. She really had a good handle on this, so that was really rewarding. One of the things that I would really plan to focus on, I'll gloss over the things that everybody said. I love the idea of combining the grants. I'm all for multi-year grants, whether it's 2 years or more years. I think that's great. And like everyone else, we do find a lot of not getting the grant, but of reporting on the grant, working on some of the issues that we need to have, working with procurement, very time consuming. And we'd rather put that time to work doing what we're supposed to be doing with the grant rather than constantly having reporting to do. Anyway, my biggest point has, and I'm very grateful that it has already been made by many of you. And the concerning thing that we saw was the idea that perhaps people who have been getting the grant for many years, it should not be should not continue to get that every year. And we would agree. But we would say the best way to handle that is what you guys have so graciously said. We would love to be a line item in the base budget and know that we can depend on the funding to do what we do. So thank you all who have voiced that, and thank you all for considering that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. All right, we have some lights. Mr. Leventhal.
Well, thanks to all the witnesses. As chair of the HHS committee, with Chair Nancy Navarro of the Government Operations Committee, we will have our first joint committee discussion of the Community Grants Program the day after tomorrow, Thursday the 11th at 10 a.m. And then we have a second session scheduled, and I believe that that is October 25th. Yep. At 2 p.m. Oh, good. Okay, so that was, okay, very good. That was moved. Good. Yeah, very good. It was moved so that we can all attend the Avery Road Treatment Center ribbon cutting, or groundbreaking, I guess it is. So I've asked these two questions of all of the panelists. I want to ask them of each of you. Ms. Shasinski, you can pass because you already answered them both.
Sorry.
First question is, would you prefer a single Montgomery County grants process to the bifurcated Executive Council grants processes? The second question is, would you like to see the county adopt two-year grant awards for some or all grants? We'll go from left to right. And again, Ms. Shasinski, you've already addressed them both. You said yes to both.
Yes.
So, Mr. Larson, we'll just go from left to right.
I appreciate the question. I'm fine with as it works, and I don't know enough to give a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, is that fine?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Yes to the first, with collaborative, meetings and so forth with the organizations, and yes to the second if we are not able to be included in the baseline budget.
Mm-hmm.
No to the first and yes to the second.
Mm-hmm.
One application for sure. One application for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to learn more about what the process would be for the two different grants, or the similar, one similar grant. So the second question, 2 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
No to the first, yes to the second.
Mm-hmm. Great. None of these things are going to be simple. I just want to be clear. I mean, these sound like great ideas. There's issues. For one thing, the charter requires that a budget is submitted every year, but that could be addressed. Secondly, not everyone's going to be in the base budget, right? There's never going to be enough money. I mean, let's be clear about it. So so much of this will depend on the will of whomever is elected county executive. These are not new issues for the council to be raising, and in the HHS committee, we tried over many years to get these perennial recurring grants in the base budget, and we could put them in the base budget, but in the year after that, the executive and OMB didn't want them there. And we have two separate processes, one which involves third-party review, and the other which is much more discretionary, because that's the way the county executive wanted it. The county executive puts the budget together and sends it to us, and then we act on it, but we deferred to the county executive for a long, long time about how his grants were presented. So this is, as others have said, a moment of transition and an opportunity to come up with a better and more efficient and more logical and rational process. I hope we can get there. And thank you all very, very much for your input.
Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out again. And I just wanted to acknowledge Ms. Leopold, who I believe is retiring or stepping down after so many years of leading college tracks, and really, truly appreciate everything you've done and the lives that, you have changed through your leadership in getting this organization to where it is. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Yes.
Mr. Elrich.
I just want to thank everybody who came up tonight and testified. You You provide connections on the ground the county government would never have. You stretch our dollars in ways that we would never be able to do, and so you do work that makes us all feel better, and we get to brag about, we fund it, but you do it, and I'm really happy that you're out there doing what you do.
That is very true. Our partnerships with the nonprofit community are what brings excellence to our service delivery. Thank you for your work. Appreciate your participation tonight, and we'll continue the conversation very soon. Drive safe.